tie up the I told you so stone. It's a pretty quick tie. Good pattern, good point fly, good in all kinds of rivers. Actually did pretty well on this up on the Madison recently, and have done well on other rivers throughout Utah, Montana, Wyoming as well. So it's something that's pretty handy. Nice bushy kind of buggy fly. Looks it trims down a little bit in the water, but it falls pretty quickly. So lots of rubber legs today. All right, I start out with a Moonlit hook, ML058 in a size 10 jig hook. Okay, I put about 7 wraps of lead on there, and I'm using a Danville's wax nylon in brown. Start off by just getting some thread wraps in behind the bead here to kind of hold that lead back a little bit, keep me some room for that tied on, and I just work down through the bend, and I work pretty far down into the bend. Okay, once I get down to the bottom end of this, cut off my tag, and I tie in some rubber legs. So the tail legs and the antenna legs are pretty long, and then in between the actual legs that you use, I go a little bit shorter. So tie this in, and you can see I'm kind of pulling towards myself, and what that helps to do is pull that far piece over towards me, so that when I tie, it comes off the back in that nice V, as you can see there, versus if I don't do that, it'll really kind of come around underneath and come in underneath. So next thing you know, I grab some size medium vinyl rib. Okay, and that is in the amber color, and I tie that in. And what I do here is tie it in right below the lead, and I kind of pull it towards me again because I want that to fall on top. And I'm stretching it a little bit. Then I work my thread up and down a few times to get a nice transition and get actually some pretty good coverage. And I'm leaving a little bit of a gap there. You can see where I'm at right now, between the rubber leg and the rib, because I don't want that first wrap of rubber leg or ribbing to go over the rubber leg, because what that'll do is cause that rubber leg that I've got set in position now to kind of want to rotate around the hook shank and get kind of nasty. And I'm just kind of putting a nice even coat on here so I have a good color, solid color of underbody. Then I take my ribbing and I wrap my ribbing with the rotary vise in the same direction as the thread, because this stuff is pretty slick, and what I don't want to do is have it come in the opposite direction of the thread, because when you go to tie it off, it just slips out and gets all loose on you. And I'm stretching it a little bit, but not too much, and I let up the tension as I move up the body of the fly. And so you can see now too, I'm also coming up significantly further than you typically would for the thorax to be. And the reason being is I'm going to wrap back over this a bit, even though the thorax is going to be up here. And that's going to give me a nice solid base to tie in my legs and whatnot. So I cut my ribbing out, and as I just mentioned, I'll start to work my thread back a little bit and cover up some of these ribs and give myself a nice, clean, smooth, big base to work with for my rubber legs and thorax and everything else. Okay, so I'm getting ready for my thorax. I'm going to take some of my thin skin, Wapsi thin skin, and I use the mottled oak material. So it looks like this, comes in a sheet. I'll slide that in there so you get a good look. And then what I do is I cut a strip, and I cut the strip about the width of the bead. And the bead, I'm about to tell you, the bead is a size 3.8 millimeter bead. It's a Moonlit hook and Moonlit bead. Alright, so I first come in with my thin skin, and I tie that in so it's sitting on top. Alright, and then I take a piece of either pearl or Mirage. I really prefer the Mirage tinsel in a medium thickness. Mirage and medium. And again, I tie that in on top as well. And that's just to add a little bit of color underneath that thin skin. And this I just kind of tie down, get out of the way. Okay, got that in place. Next up, I use some Wapsi rubber legs. They're in natural cream. They come in a big long strip. I take some of those. Usually the strip is so long, I actually typically take it and cut it down so it's manageable to work with. Okay. Alright, so now that I've got that rolling, I tie in a set of legs here. I'm going to bring my thread back, and I start the legs just ahead of where the point of the hook is there. And I usually put 2 wraps, adjust my leg, then I cut it off. And you can cut it off, you know, right around where the tail starts for now. And then again, I put about 2 more wraps on the next leg. Adjust that in the position. And I cut that one off in the back as well. And then I kind of trim these up a little bit here right now because I just don't want them in the way. And I'll just leave them a little longer than where the head of the fly is. Yeah. Okay. Then I'll start to work these flat and wrap forward all the way up to the bead. Okay. And as I get to the bead, they're going to want to get a little squirrely on me. So I put some loose wraps in, usually turn it, get a good look at it, stretch it a little bit, and then put a nice solid firm wrap on there, and then a couple in between. Okay, so that's it. We got my legs in place. And then the last bit that I do is I like to tie in my antennae. And so for my antennae, I usually just cut a small loop off about the length that I want. And go at it from that standpoint. So I got a nice loop in place, and I like to just come in here and let's see here. Stay in front of these legs, get a turn. There we go. 2 turns again, like I said. That gets me in the position. You got a lot of legs going here, so you can get a little weary on you. So I do a couple like pinch wraps. Try and keep them. But I like these to be kind of tight pointing off the front, you know, like an antenna would. Okay, alright, so we got those in place. Keep those pretty long. I'll trim them flush, and we can always adjust them later. Okay, so we got our nice body here in place, some ribbing, got our legs, material in place. Last bit is I put in this shrimp colored medium length chenille. Okay, shrimp color in just about anything seems to be golden, but I'll tie that in. And you notice I didn't trim that. The key is, see the core in there? If you don't catch that core and you're only catching the flashy material, it's going to slip. So you got to lay that down, make sure you're capturing the core, and don't worry about trapping that stuff because you're going to wrap back over it. So I put some pretty good wraps on that, and then I just finish up over here on the side of this side of the legs. And then this is pretty easy wrap. But I only do 2 because this stuff there's a lot of it on the chenille, so you don't really need a ton to give you that pretty buggy feeling. So I go 1 and then 2. I just make sure there's 2 underneath on the bottom side, and that's it. And then once I have that in place, I just tie off, and I try and hold back the first set of legs and leave the antenna. Okay, like that. When I come in, it helps to have a nice pair of like serrated scissors here. Cuts real easy. Okay, so we got that tied down. Looking pretty good. I pull my Mirage flash over. And I'm staying again in front of these first set of legs. Get that tied down. Pull it a little snug and then I trim it. And then I take my thin skin and I pull my thin skin around. Okay. And again, I'm trapping it usually once with 2 turns, and then I'm usually adjusting or, you know, kind of micromanaging it from there. In that case, it just tore pretty easily, so I'm going to get that tied down quick. Usually you'll have to cut that. All right, got it down in place. Put my 3-turn whip on there. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And we are set. That's all you have to do for the I Told You So stone. There you go. Trim up these legs. You can put, or antennae, the legs look pretty good right now. You trim this one to get even. And these tails are pretty long, so I'll trim those. And all these legs and tails, etc. One thing you can do is put barring on those. Some pretty good tips on how to do barring in another session, but yeah, there you go. There's the I Told You So stone. Thanks. Subscribe, hit that like button, and we'll talk to you soon.